Hello, and we are live. Welcome to the Bloodstream. Let me see, am I coming through loud and clear here? Let me know. Yes, I am. All right. How's everybody doing tonight? Hope you all are having a great Memorial Day. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you, Nico, right off the bat for the $5 super chat, sir. Hey, Piz, I'm saddling up for the big event. Hope you had a great weekend. Hey, all. Thank you, Nico. Appreciate that, my friend. Before we get the ball rolling here tonight, I've got a couple of things I do want to say. Toward the end of tonight's stream, we will be doing a Q&A. So if you have questions for Brad, either hold those until toward the end of the stream, or please feel free to send those through super chats. Those, of course, support the channel, and YouTube keeps a log of those, so they're very easily accessible for me. Also, we'll open up I was going to say the phone lines, but it's not really the phone lines. We're going to open up the stream. If you want to jump on and ask Brad a question face to face, we'll make that link available toward the end of tonight's stream as well. I've already made that link available to my patrons and channel members so that they can have first dibs at Brad. So, if you're familiar with my channel, I'm sure you know that I'm an outspoken advocate of physical media, and I love the companies that are doing their part to keep physical media alive. Vinegar Syndrome has been at the forefront of that preservation over the past few years. Vinegar Syndrome has earned a special place in my heart for giving new high-definition life to movies that many thought lost or abandoned. I've reviewed a good portion of their catalog on my channel, and every single release of theirs has been an adventure. I'm thrilled to have with me tonight a writer, producer, film historian, and acquisitions and extras producer for Vinegar Syndrome, Mr. Brad Henderson. How's it going, Brad?
Hey, how's it going, man? Thanks for having me. Thanks for everybody that's tuning in. Appreciate it.
Yeah, right on, man. Thank you for taking the time out of your Memorial Day to hang out with me and talk movies and talk physical media and all of the above. I appreciate it.
Happy to do so, man. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, right on, man. I'm sure just about everybody watching this is familiar with Vinegar Syndrome and are fans of what you all are doing over there. But let's get to know Brad Henderson. What do
you want to know?
What's your favorite color? No. Do you remember when you first fell in love with movies?
It was a very, very young age. It actually dates back, and I have, actually recorded video footage of this. It was October of 1988. So my birthday is November. So I would have been 3 going on 4 at that time. And I'm opening up a bag for Halloween, and my parents got me a Freddy hat, a glove, and the mask. And I knew, the rhyme that they say in the film. So very, very early on, with my mom putting me in front of the television and watching these things with her. And I posted that video before on Twitter, just because it's funny to see this little kid just doing all this. I mean, seriously, my parents are probably a little fucked up for doing that, but my mom was really into horror and got me into it, and my dad was very much into westerns and prison films. My grandfather was into like war movies. My grandmother was into erotic thrillers. My great grandmother was into musicals. So movies were always like around. And I'm not just saying like they watched movies occasionally. Like movies was always a thing in our family. Like, let's sit down and watch a movie. So yeah, it just came very, very early on, going to the video store with my mom, renting everything that we could, watching everything that I could. She would hook up the dual VCRs and record stuff so we'd have it later, because we lived up in the mountains, so it took like 45 minutes to actually get to the video store. So she would just record a lot just so that way we would have it, in case we wanted to watch it again. But yeah, it started off that early. And then, being I was consuming all this stuff as I got older into my teens, and I wanted more and more and more and more. it just went on from there, going to different video stores when I was, during the summer in Ohio, going to Video Time, which is my main thing, kind of that Akron Canton area that was there. And then we had like a Video Hut and a couple mom and pop places here, and of course a Blockbuster. And I would just go there. But honestly, there was Albertsons too. There was a grocery store around here, and they had this really, really weird section of movies. Obviously, no new releases, just like a lot of weird, horror, thriller, erotic titles. So I would just keep renting and renting and renting and renting, and then I started researching because we got a compact computer when I was younger, and one of the discs on that, because when you would buy a computer at the time, you got like games and stuff when you bought them, and it was an all movie guide. Basically, it predates IMDb, and it was a disc, and you put in, and it was basically IMDb, but you could filter, like horror. So I was looking for stuff that wasn't at my video stores, and started buying stuff when I was in my teens, started buying stuff off of eBay. My mom would buy me box lots of VHS tapes. I mean, I would have my summer money for mowing lawns and stuff, so she didn't buy them for me, but she would, help me purchase these. Because at the time, you can get these things for $0.25 for the most part. It's just shipping was a lot, so you could buy like 150 tapes for, $75 or something like that. So I would, just buy those and buy them. And then when I was in my mid-teens, probably like I would say maybe about 14, my mom would take me to different like bootlegging conventions around here in like the Tampa and Orlando area. So people would be tape trading for the most part, not really bootlegs per se. It was more or less tape trading from stuff from Germany, films from Africa, films from Australia, films from Canada, just a lot of stuff you couldn't get around here. And then I got into that, and just, there you go. And then it just kept getting more and more and more. And then I wanted more and more and more, and just researched what I could, and basically never said no to anything. Do you still
have any of those old tapes?
Yeah. No, I still have a lot of lost films, stuff that's never been on like IMDb. Yeah, there's, I have some really weird stuff that's just not known at all, and that's kind of where the lost film thing for me started. And back in the day, some directors and writers, they had websites and stuff, and some of them belonged to these horror forums, and you would talk to them, and they would help you discover something, or actually engage in a conversation with you. And that was really cool. And then I met through a horror forum, I met Sage Stallone, Sly's son, and him and I became really good friends, and we tape traded back and forth. He was older than me by a few years, but it was really nice because him and I became really good friends through the years, and did a lot of tape trading, and he was really into a lot of weird stuff.
Yeah, I mean, who would have thunk it? Sylvester Stallone's son is into like these weird, obscure, there movies.
Sage's knowledge was insane. Yeah,
he founded, or he was co-founder of, what was the company? It's on the tip of my tongue.
Grindhouse Releasing.
Grindhouse Releasing. Yes.
So it's, but yeah, it just kind of went from there, and then like I said, I got into a lot of work prints, a lot of lost films, and like I said, just try to consume anything I could.
What were some of your favorite movies growing up?
I mean, the basics a lot, but there were a couple in there. It's funny because a lot of them became Vinegar Syndrome titles. So, Winter Beast was a big one that I loved as a kid growing up, because that was readily available in Akron, Canton, because Tempe Entertainment was based in the Akron, Canton area with J.R. Bookwalter, and that was actually a movie on his label. So at the video store that I went to in Video Time, and kind of there's Massillon, Akron, and Canton, all in that area, they had kind of a Tempe local filmmaker section, and that's what turned me on to J.R. Bookwalter, but also Winter Beast. So Winter Beast, the Severed Arm, which I'll probably talk about a lot tonight. That was a big one that I liked as a kid. But all the basics: Halloween, Friday the 13th. The other kind of maybe more oddball ones are not rare or anything. Of course, it's just, everybody knows them at this point. But like Slaughter High was a big one, big influence of mine. Class of 1999, still like one of my all-time favorite movies. Harold and Maude was a big influence of mine. Not horror at all, but definitely kind of teeters on the edge of different genres in a way. But that's a love story, of course. But Harold and Maude was a big thing. But any slasher films, slashers were a big thing for me too.
Yeah, you mentioned video stores, and that was a huge part of my my formative years was spending a lot of time in video stores and just renting everything. And where I lived, we never had like the big chain video stores. We always had the small ma and pa video stores, which is where you really found the offbeat. Exactly, the gold.
Yeah.
And there was a video store in my town that was just, if you were a horror fan, it was Mecca, because the guy who owned it was a big horror fan and he loved everything. He loved, he had all the big franchises all the way down to like gore horror and stuff that was like shot in people's backyards on a camcorder. He loved all that. He especially loved that stuff for some reason. He loved like the homemade horror. So that's kind of where I got, if it looked like a slasher movie at all, I would rent it. And he had such a horror section that in just a few years, I ended up renting so many movies, and most of them, unfortunately, are not on Blu-ray today.
There's quite a bit.
Yeah. Like you said, the gold.
Yeah, it's funny because you always it's not a bad thing at all. It's just it's fun to kind of live vicariously through people that don't know these movies or don't think that there's a lot of movies out there still. I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of movies that are still not yet released on DVD and Blu-ray. And that's coming from the US to Mexico to Africa to the UK, from Australia. There's and especially just Europe in general. There's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of movies, and a lot of good ones too. It's not like all the good ones have been released, and now we're, I always hear this, and I always irks me when I do. They say scraping the bottom of the barrel, and no one's doing that yet. There are movies that aren't good, but it's not the bottom of the barrel. Usually, there's some type of connection with a filmmaker, or maybe the people that released it think that they they really like it. I mean, that's happened too, it kind of like, for example, like Severance Deep Blood. A lot of people didn't like that, but that movie's a very oddball movie that exists. And there's kind of a very interesting story of how it was made. And so I totally get why that is on, Blu-ray, but I don't think anybody's scraping the bottom. I know no one's scraping the bottom of the barrel yet. And I don't think we ever will. It's just that there's way too many movies out there and way too much to be celebrated, and just a lot of things that people don't know about. And that's the fun thing about researching and getting into a lot of stuff is, I'm one of those people that always wants to watch a new movie at least once a day, watch one new movie to me. And I still do that. And I am not even close to seeing everything, and you never will. But it's a fun journey.
One thing that I love about Vinegar Syndrome, like, I mean, I consider myself a fairly well-versed horror fan. Again, that video store introduced me to a lot of stuff. Absolutely. And a lot of stuff I'll mention to people and they're just like, what? I've never heard of that. And I'm like, well, there's a reason. But why do you think certain movies kind of slip through the cracks? Is it because nobody's looking for them? Is it because, I mean, we've all heard some of the bigger titles that have yet to make the jump, it's musical rights, or it's, whoever owns it just wants to sit on it for whatever reason, blah, blah, blah. But why does a movie like, I don't know, Pale Blood or Who Done It uh, something, movies like that we saw on the video store shelves just kind of, they fall through the cracks when it comes to making that jump to
Yeah.
DVD or Blu-ray.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think there's various variables. There's different variables
Right.
for all of that stuff, and I don't have the answer, but my best guess would be that one, it's star power. Even if somebody went on to do something like, a lot of the Friday the 13th films, a lot of those people went up to do soap operas, so
Right.
at least like their names were out there. I mean, that's different because it's Paramount, but a lot of these titles, they were self-distributed for one. The distribution companies were very, very small. And even though it was a booming industry, they were able to acquire, and the video market was just huge. They did incredibly well. I mean, you're talking about $1 million market here on some of these bigger labels, and then some of the smaller labels. I mean, these people made a lot of money because video stores were buying one or two copies, and you had thousands and thousands and thousands of video stores throughout the country. But what happens is that company, that label, just like how we have now, those labels would release 20, 30 films. Sometimes they would buy the rights, sometimes they would license them, and then they went out of business. And sometimes the rights are lost. Sometimes the filmmakers don't give a shit. They have no idea that their movie is wanted. That was something. And also, I mean, we're talking a lot of horror at this point, I think. I think that's a good kind of way to the direction we should go with this conversation, just because everybody was making a horror film. So you could, a lot of people made one-offs. That's kind of like the homegrown horror sets and these regional horror films. A lot of these people just got together to make a movie and then make, $100,000 off of the deal for the video store, off a label. And then they went on to do something. They went to take that money and started their own business, their own construction business, their own, realtor business. Who knows what they've done? But a lot of them done that. So, we look at it as these people are kind of like our heroes in a way. We watch their movies. We watch this one little old movie over and over again, and we love it. And then we talk it up, and we have someone else watch it, someone else. And then some YouTube channel covers it, and, it's a fun movie. And then it gains this cult status. That person has no idea, because they're not Googling on their computer, like, their title of their movie to see what's going on. It's left their brain. They don't care anymore. And, a lot of these movies that, there are some of still the big companies that have rights to a lot of stuff, but, there's a ton of movies that are owned by the individuals. And that's kind of where, you have to make sure that they don't fall through the cracks and they don't get lost, and comes to times where people just throw away material. They made the movie. Now the reels are in their garage. They're collecting dust. And then 20 years ago, they tossed them and threw them away because no one's thinking restorations and Blu-ray,
Right.
I mean, some of these movies were even edited on tape, and that's the other thing is that, they shot all these reels, they edited, they basically edited all on tape. And then they left the uncut reels and negatives in the corner and maybe tossed them because they were taking up too much room because they're editing on tape. So you have that too. It's just, it's always a different story for every movie, but I think to generalize, that's kind of where it's coming from.
Yeah. I had Buddy Cooper on one of these last year, and he basically, I said, what took the Mutilator so long to come to Blu-ray? And he goes, I didn't know anybody wanted to see it. He was like, when the movie came out, no, there wasn't an audience for it. He's like, I didn't know anybody wanted to see it. I wasn't on the internet. I wasn't, you know what I mean? I had no idea it had a cult following until, people started reaching out to me to want to distribute to do a DVD release. And he just didn't know. He thought nobody liked the movie, and it had just disappeared into obscurity while at the same time it was amassing this cult following he had no idea about.
No, I mean, a lot of times when we contact filmmakers, directors, actors, honestly, one of the very first reactions I get is like, hey, are you so-and-so from this movie? Well, yeah. Well, we want to release that. And why do you want to do that? the movie sucks. You know, and this the thing is, a lot of people don't believe in their product anymore,
Right.
so they don't try to get it, you know, out there again because they're ashamed of it. And sometimes you have that too, where people are just ashamed and they don't want their movie to, so they aren't trying to get it out there. You know, and then of course a lot of these companies that are, you know, maybe have consumed or acquired another company, they you know, they sit on it because there maybe isn't too much money in it for them because they're releasing newer movies, you know, or their bigger movies are more or money makers, and they don't believe this small little monster movie that isn't that great but it's entertaining is going to move any units. And so it's yeah, it's just, you know, like I said, it's a different story for every film.
Mm-hmm. Let's go back for just a minute here. We were both talking about the video store, and that's an experience that people today just, you know, they're not going to have, and I think that's kind of sad. Do you have any particularly fond memories of the video store?
Oh yeah, no, big time. I mean, I still get very nostalgic and sometimes emotional over that stuff because you know, we would go to, like I said, video time in Ohio, and we would spend summers in Ohio for sometimes like 3-4 weeks. And my grandma would take me there probably twice a week to go rent 3 or 4 films. The smell of mildew and cigarettes, I tell you, it's gross, but I miss that a little bit, you know. And it was, and when I was buying tapes and stuff like that, every once in a while you'd take the, you know, the VHS out of its sleeve, and when you did that, it would hit you, that smell.
Right.
And it was like, oh, it's like, you know, that reminds me of being a kid. You know,
Yeah.
it's the same thing as like if your grandfather smoked. It's the same way that, you know, my grandfather smoked quite a bit, and you know, whenever I smell someone that has a shirt on that they smoked hours ago and you push by them, they smell like cigarettes. But
Right.
part of that triggers me, and it's like, oh man, this smells like my grandfather, you know. So there's part of that, but also just going in and looking around, and you know, just looking at the box art, picking up the tape, looking at it, you know, getting excited, building this movie up in your head as you're on the way home, through the night, through the next day, sit down and watch it. And you just don't know what you're going to experience. And, you know, the video store kind of had this whole different way that we watch movies too. And I think that's ruined. You know, I mean, people still like to watch movies, but there's something different about, you know, getting the family together, going to the video store, making a night out of going to get a pizza, going to the video store, having the kids look through, the adults look through, getting 1 or 2 movies to rent. You go all the way home, you get the pizza, you sit down, you watch the movie. If it wasn't something that intrigued you in 3 minutes, you didn't turn it off like you do on Netflix, or, oh, does anybody else like this? No. Okay, let's see what else is on. And you just have this plethora of movies in front of you, which is a good thing that we have so many movies that are at our disposal. But there is something bad about that at the same time, is I don't think a lot of people give movies chances. And I think when the video store existed, we had to, because we just spent 3 fucking hours trying to get the food and the movie back to the house. So, you know, you don't take it out and go return it. You know, you're like, we you know, we rented this, we're gonna watch it tonight.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's that missing. You know, the discovery of stuff, you know, just streaming through and reading a synopsis on a you know, a streaming service isn't discovering a movie. It's new to you, and that's great, and that's the whole purpose. But there was something kind of cool about going out and discovering stuff, and it's just like, I don't know, it's just it's part of that I miss. And, you know, there's no way we're actually probably going to ever get that back.
No.
You know, there are video stores that exist, and that's cool, and you still get to kind of experience that in a way, but we'll never be able to recreate something like that. It's kind of like going to the mall. You know, you can't. There's
Yeah.
no malls aren't fun anymore. You know, back in the 80s, early 90s, going to the mall on the weekend with your friends was a blast. Now it's weird, you know? It's just this dead place. I'm sure people still have like malls that are popular, but for the most part, malls are dead.
Pretty much. Yeah.
So there's kind of a nostalgia thing to going to the video store as well. But yeah, and then the other thing is that, you know, everybody that has Netflix has the same Netflix. At video stores, we didn't have that. You all had
Right.
different movies because it was all based off around, you know, your areas. There were people that distributed locally. There was bigger stores that also depended on who was running the store, you know. So that was a big thing.
Yeah.
But anyways.
It was a social thing. It wasn't just you're going there to rent a movie. You're going there to hang out with your friends, and you're going there to talk movies. And yeah, I mean, we are, I think, too overwhelmed with choice. I know I am. Like if I sit down in front of Amazon Prime or Shudder or Netflix, for instance, I do more times. I get wore out scanning through the different titles, and I don't watch anything. I just put the remote down.
Yeah.
There's almost too much choice there. And you know, the smells for me are the popcorn. When I smell a certain kind of popcorn popping, I'm taken back to the video store. Or like the smell of when they would print your receipt, you know, that smell, like the hot paper. And my buddy worked at a video store for a long time. And I remember the night he introduced me to the screener room. This is the room where they keep all their screeners. And I just was, it was like, hallelujah. Here's all these movies. Like they're not even out yet, but you know, he's like, yeah, take whatever you want. I mean, oh, you know, I'm grabbing like every screener that they got. And, yeah. So it was, it's something that can't be recreated. I was in a video store not that long ago, and it just, you know, it just wasn't the same. Maybe I've changed. Maybe, I don't know. Things have changed. It just wasn't quite the same. It still kind of felt good to be there, but it just wasn't the same. And it's sad that it'll never be that way again. And I do feel bad for younger people today who will never get that experience of the video store. I think also socializing is something that we don't do a whole lot anymore. I mean, especially the past year, but you know, being social has changed also.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. It's I look back on the video store days with such fondness, and yeah, at the same time, kind of sadness that it's gone and that it'll never.
Yeah, I know. I worked at a video store, so I know. And it was a blast to, you know, order stuff that, you know, you wanted in a store, and you could make recommendations. And you know, it's the video stores are kind of curated in a way too, which was really nice. You know, because even like some of the mom and pop places, like we had a movie gallery, which was a chain. But the movie gallery was a franchise near me. And the guy that was working there, you know, was a newer movie gallery that opened like in the year like 99 or 2000. So, you know, all those old VHS tapes, it's not an old store. It was a brand new store opening up. And in his store, he had a ton of old tapes, a ton of old horror films. And then like I met him, and then he was obviously really into this stuff, which was great. And that was something that I really liked, even though it was a chain. I was able to kind of relive that a little bit. Yeah, you know, like I said, we have about 3 or 4 video stores where I lived in Florida, in the area, so that was really nice. But I mean, all that died out, and you know, the 2005 when Blockbuster eventually, I mean, Blockbuster was the only standing one, and then they started going under. So
yeah. Blockbuster killed the mom and pop video stores, and then streaming killed Blockbuster. So
yeah. No, it's you know, that's just what happens. But you know, in a positive light, is that now with these boutique labels and streaming services, people don't have to try as hard to find stuff. So that's, you know, that's the big aspect of this too. That's the positive thing. Because I always tell people, I was like, when I was younger, and this is my this is what I tell, like, how do I explain this? Is that Return of the Living Dead was one of the hardest things to find when I was younger. And when MGM released that on DVD, that was a big deal. And they did it like in probably like, I don't know, 98, 97. I can't really remember the year. But like stuff like that and Monster Squad and Night of the Creeps, those tapes were going for a lot of money on eBay. Mm-hmm. And they were known, but they were really hard to get unless you caught them on television. And now I can just hop on Vudu or Amazon and rent it for $3.99.
Right, exactly.
That's cool. That's great. And plus, it's a better version than what the VHS would have been. So, like, there's just this really, really awesome way to see all these movies now. The only downside is that the video stores don't exist. So now all these other ones are just kind of like, forgotten about. And like you said, fell through the cracks.
Yeah. When did you decide to turn your fandom for movies into writing about movies?
You cut up a little bit right there. You meant like when
did you turn
like reviews and stuff?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean I did it because of the movies falling through the cracks. When I started writing, I didn't write about stuff that was on DVD or newer to DVD Blu-ray at first. I was writing about stuff that was stuck on VHS. I was writing about older movies. And that's kind of where it all started. And then when the boutique label stuff started happening, then I was like, oh, I get to write about that because I want to promote this. I want these things to survive. I want these companies to survive because they're doing what I would love to see all these other people do. And eventually, it is what it is today. So like, it was just really cool to kind of see, the transition of writing about this stuff and then seeing it grow. I mean, I did write reviews on newer movies. I always did that, but I really started writing about stuff that was forgotten about. That was my big thing.
Cool.
And it was just to educate people, to say that, don't what, I mean this in a nice way, but don't watch Suspiria for the 37th time. Watch something new.
Right.
That's kind of what I always say. And I always notice that too, kind of like going through, through the years of like people saying like, oh, I'm going to and I love rewatching movies too, but I always like to hear and see people, kind of watch newer stuff and experience it for the first time. I think that's magical, whether they like it or hate it.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking back on how did I first become aware of Vinegar Syndrome, and I went back through all my reviews of Vinegar Syndrome titles, and the very first one I do believe was Graduation Day. So that was my intro to Vinegar Syndrome. Do you remember how you first became aware of Vinegar Syndrome?
Funny story. I think it's funny. So I was perusing Amazon like I normally would do, just looking for cheap DVDs, cheap Blu-rays, and then I came across Night Train to Terror on Blu-ray on Amazon, and I saw that and I was like, what the fuck is this? Like, this has to be a bootleg. So like I clicked on it, and I wanted to see where it was from. And then I saw it was from this company called Vinegar Syndrome. I was like, okay, I didn't know what that was. So, I Googled it, then I found their website. It was pretty early on that they released that movie. Mm-hmm. And I saw some of the other stuff they had. They had, some exploitation DVDs, and I was like, holy shit. So I bought through them. I bought Night Train to Terror. I bought, I think The Suckers, and I bought, because The Suckers was a lost film that I knew about that I never saw. So I had like that, and I forget a couple other titles. And, they came in the mail and they had screenshots. And I was like, man, this stuff looks really good. and I got it in the mail, and it was real. And I was like, holy crap! Like, these are the movies that I watched at the video store. So I just started following it, and then I was still writing at the time, so I reached out to Vinegar Syndrome, and I said, hey, like, this is the sites that I write for. I write about stuff that's stuck on VHS, and I would like to write about some of this stuff. And it was James who I was talking to, who's still obviously with us. And he was like, yeah, it's cool, man. He's like, I'll send you some other cool shit. And so then we just started talking. He sent me stuff. I would write about it. And that's kind of how the whole relationship started. But yeah, it was Night Train to Terror was my first movie. So
What was the first title that you worked on for Vinegar Syndrome?
I guess it was the Undertaker was the first title. I have to look. It would have been the Undertaker. That was the first title I worked on. And I was already like a beta tester for Exploitation TV, and I was writing stuff for them. I was like putting together buyer guides, and I was bugging them about random bullshit. So it was the Undertaker that came up, and I kind of like was able, like, I helped I didn't help at all. I was talked them into like doing some cons. I was like, hey, you guys should buy, get a booth and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then they came down to Orlando and did like Spooky Empire and stuff like that. And I got to talk to some of the other people that worked in the business, like Ryan and some of the others. And I said, this is kind of like my background. Like, I researched this stuff. I have a lot of weird stuff, whatnot. So the Undertaker came up, and I was kind of like already saying, hey, if you guys need any help, I know how to do this. I know how to do that. I know, because I was looking into doing this myself at one point, was, creating a boutique label and releasing these movies. So right before the Undertaker, I said, hey, I would, I have a couple suggestions, and it's not really suggestions. Like well, it was a suggestion, but I knew where the rights to the movie was, and I knew where the material was. And I said, hey, I have this. And then James was like, yeah, he's like, whatever you can, whatever you have, just let me know, blah, blah, blah. Not really blowing me off, but like, yeah, just, good, whatever you can do. Mm-hmm. And I came back with like 5-6 movies like the following day. And I was like, this is where the materials is the rights. And so they were like, oh, okay. Brad's probably not full of shit. And so I was like, I just, I did that. And, eventually, like, that was, Splatter University, LA Wars, those, The Suckling. Those were some of the movies that, I helped, kind of get off the ground way before anything else. And so basically what happened with The Undertaker is that they had the negative, and they scanned the film, and then the director watched it, and he said, oh, the movie's incomplete, and here it was the negative that was actually cut, which was odd. And so there was this big thing where The Undertaker actually never got a VHS release. It went from the theater to DVD from Code Red back in the day. It actually never had a VHS release. And so what happened is that there was a bootleg of the movie that was being passed around for years, of this cut of the movie, the full cut, but it was just a bootleg. So they said, hey, you collect bootlegs, you have all this stuff. Do you have, a copy of this? And I said, no, I don't, but I have a digital copy, but it's really bad. But give me like, a week. Well, actually, what happened, I'm sorry, let me back up. What happened is that they said if I could find the editor. I was like, yeah, I can try. So I spent a couple months trying to find the editor. Found him, but he didn't have any material. Maybe he had like a master tape, like a 1-inch tape is what we wanted to source from to get the clearest possible image, even though it's VHS. So basically, the next step was to find a first generation of that bootleg. So I had a couple people in my circles that I contacted, and eventually I found one from Art Ettinger, and he overnighted the tape to VS. We scanned it, then we were able to do those VHS inserts for the most part, and then have the complete movie, which was great because that was the only way to do it. If we didn't, then it would have those missing scenes, which is I think like almost 15-20 minutes. But yeah, no, that was the very first title I worked on, and then after that it just kind of came and went. So
very cool. Well, I've had people on the channel in the past who've produced extras for these releases, and I know you do that too, but I've never spoken to anyone who actually works on acquiring the titles, which is a whole other ball of wax and a process that ostensibly requires a lot of detective work. So I want to throw a hypothetical at you. Let's say I'm starting my own boutique label and I want to license, name a movie that's not been brought to Blu-ray yet. Just random movie that's not been on Blu-ray yet or DVD. How do I start that process, and what are the barriers that I'll have to overcome to see that process to fruition?
Yeah, I mean, the big thing is, again, every movie is different. But the biggest part of finding something is to see, one, if it's owned by a company, because at various times producers would sell the movie to a company. And then that company owned it and then went defunct, and who knows where they are. So you would have to find the owner of that company or whoever took over. Maybe they sold the company to someone else. Maybe they sold to another library. Maybe the filmmaker owns it themselves. Maybe it's the producer. So really, it's just a point of contacting various people to see if they own the film. And mainly, you can tell a lot of this by copyright online, exchange of hands. That helps. It's just there's various sources that you have to do, but a lot of it's just phone calls and emails. And it's something that people really don't like. Typically, anybody could say that they own something, but you also have to find the material. And the person that usually has the rights knows where the material is, where it could be located, or they may have it themselves. And then when that happens, you pretty much know that they own the film. Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's various, you'd have to, and it's a lot of work too, because like I said, this small little company that released 5 movies may own all 5 movies. They went bankrupt, so they sold to this other company. Then that company went out of business. Then they sold their stuff to somebody else, or they died. So yeah, it's always going to be a different story. There's really no like straight line to it. It's always like a spider web of information. Sometimes they're easier than others. Sometimes you could spend years,
Right. Do you run into issues like, I think we've all heard of different titles that, well, the reason it's not on Blu-ray is because of music. Have you ever run into any issues with a title where the music, you'd have to relicense the music on top of the movie?
Yeah, I hear that. It's something that's said a lot that's not necessarily always true.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of things that are said in this kind of industry that it's like someone heard it and then they say it on a forum or a website, and then those 20 people see it, and then they, they tell two friends and they tell two friends, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then it becomes this whole thing of like, oh yeah, the rights are totally messed up. Who said that?
Mm-hmm.
Who tried and who said it? That's the one thing. There are obviously music issues with films, and that is, some of the reasons why these things aren't released, especially if they had like a huge soundtrack. That was a big thing that the Wonder Years had to deal with. Because sometimes those licensed to have those songs maybe have just been for television.
Right.
They only had television rights. They didn't license for Blu-ray or DVD,
Mm-hmm.
or streaming. So they weren't thinking about that because that wasn't a thing at the time. They may have just licensed music theatrically. That could happen too, which is a little rare, but it can happen. Maybe they only licensed the movie for 15, 20 years. For the music for the movie for 15, 20 years. That's a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
But typically your rights holder will know that. But it is, it's not uncommon, but it's not that frequent.
Not that frequent. Okay.
Yeah.
I remember hearing an interview with Michael Felsher, who I'm sure you're probably familiar with.
Yeah.
He once said that the reason why most movies don't get a Blu-ray release is simply because of laziness. The companies that own the titles either don't know they own the titles, don't care that they own the titles, or just don't want to put the paperwork together to make it happen.
Yeah.
Have you ever had any kind of experience like that?
I mean, we see it, but that's when you step in and say, hey, let's do this. But yeah, no, I mean, there are companies that just sit on these movies. It's a lot. Here's the thing is there's a lot of work, and a lot of money that goes into starting this kind of stuff up. I mean, you have to have that material scanned, which you have to pay for. You have to pay for your restoration. You have to produce the special features. You have to produce the material, as far as like a case. You have to do new artwork. You have to do this and that. Before you know it, you're up there.
Mm-hmm.
Who wants these movies? It is a very niche thing. Like, we're all in this big community, and we see that, all these people want this movie. But in the grand scheme of things, we're a very, very small chunk of people. We're not releasing Friday the 13th. We're not releasing Halloween that's going to be able to be put in Best Buy and Walmart and, do all this stuff. No, that's not the case. We're releasing a movie that maybe 4,000 people will buy.
Right.
Bigger companies don't give a shit about 4,000 people. That's so small.
Right.
And the return on that is smaller. So yeah, no, that's a very good, way to look at it. I mean, like I said, it's always different. But yeah, no, that's one for sure.
What were some particularly difficult Vinegar Syndrome titles for you to acquire?
I mean, none really. It's finding the material that is difficult. I think that is the biggest obstacle, because finding rights, you could take a while, but are you talking about difficulty like that, or are you talking about like
just overall difficulty?
I would say honestly, finding material is the hardest, because you have to, one, make sure that it's in good condition, and where the hell did it end up?
Right.
Because there's a lot of labs that existed out in LA, in New York, whatnot. And when people weren't shooting on film as much anymore, these companies started shutting down, and then they were either thrown away or moved into another company. So it's really tracking and tracing a lot of that stuff. Sometimes labs don't even know what they have. Sometimes the owner has no idea where their film is. That happens. So I think that's one of the biggest obstacles that we face for sure.
Or you have, like in the case of the Beastmaster, the guy who owned the movie just threw the original negative away, right? Or just put it somewhere and forgot about it, or
well, no. That was just where the negative was. The owner was not the person that threw it away. It was somebody else. It was one of the main producers that passed away. We believe that he had it. There's no hardcore fact. It's just that that's kind of where we ended up. So the owner had the IP, which is the interpositive. But as far as the negative, we've heard from pretty reliable sources that it ended up in a garage and the person died. And then it just probably was thrown away. And if it was in a garage in California for 30 years, it ain't going to be good anyway.
No, yeah, it's melted. It's
goo.
It's goo. It's goo.
Well, it's developed vinegar syndrome.
Exactly. It's got vinegar syndrome. I'd never heard that term until the company came about. And I was asking somebody one day, because I just thought it was a cool name, vinegar syndrome, right? I was like, it's got to be like some kind of birth defect or some kind of, I don't know. I was like, vinegar syndrome. They're like, no. It happens to, film when it gets old, it develops vinegar syndrome.
Yeah.
Cool. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm sure most everybody's aware of the Halfway to Black Friday sale, which is going on over on Vinegar Syndrome's website right now.
3 more hours.
3 more hours. We're in the home stretch here. Yeah. Since there's only 3 hours left, do you have any recommendations for my viewers who may not have taken advantage of the sale yet? What are some of your personal favorite Vinegar Syndrome titles?
Yeah, I mean, our sale, everything, pretty much everything is 50% off from everything from like January and before. I think February and on. I think there's a slight discount, but not much. But yeah, that stuff's on sale. A lot of our old catalog titles are half off. But yeah, we have a bunch of new stuff, which is great. A lot actually. But there's a lot of cool stuff. I mean, we just did the UHD of Scanner Cop 1 and 2, which was a big thing for me. I'm a huge Scanner Cop 2 fan. So I was really happy to get that out, especially in UHD. That release has 2 documentaries, basically. One about the first, one about the second one. The first one's shorter, second one's a lot longer, just because of the people that are still around for that film. But yeah, I had a blast putting that together, just because I think Scanner Cop 2 is like one of the best, best sequels of all time. One of the best movies ever. It's got some killer, gnarly effects in it. Patrick Kilpatrick does a performance that is just insane. And I was able to moderate the commentary with Steve Barnett on the film for part 2. And like I said, we put together some really cool extras with the cast and crew. And obviously interviewing Patrick Kilpatrick, who is one of the nicest people that I've ever met in this industry, and very, very intelligent and very, very smart as well. A big one that's not newer that was released last year was it doesn't move very often. I was a little heartbroken because I talked about it earlier was The Severed Arm. That was it was one of the films that really got me into filmmaking. One of the films that really inspired me to just be who I am now. So I was very excited when we got to do that. It is a very different type of movie. It's a proto slasher, so predates a lot of slasher film, pretty much all slasher films. And it's uniquely crafted. It's got a very unique score, very, very odd. It has the psychological aspect to it that's really different. But it's a very kind of grim tale, but told in a very uniquely way of having a guy chop off people's arms. And I just always thought that was like a little before its time, and I think it still is, and it's a really, really good film. And I hope more people purchase it and see it, just because I think it is one of a kind. Pledge Night has always been a big favorite of mine. Super punk rock, Animal House meets a slasher film. I've always really, really loved that movie. That was another film that I would love to have done when I was thinking about doing my own label. Soundtracks by Anthrax. It even has, Joey Belladonna in it. And it's just this really kind of neat movie where the first half is kind of this frat house, Animal House type thing, and then the killer shows up. Acid Sid shows up and starts killing people.
My favorite, of course, I'm a huge slasher fan. My favorite part of Pledge Night is the first half when it's the
right.
The frat house pranks.
The weirdest thing, I love slashers, but I would just like to see a movie with them just fucking off the entire time. It was just, very humorous.
Yeah.
So there's that. Fade to Black was a huge one. Just because I had a blast putting that together. I think it was nominated for a Rondo Award at the special features, which was kind of nice. But yeah, it had, various interviews with cast and crew, from Patty Bunch, the makeup artist, to Wayne Beecham, who did the squibs and little explosions. Of course, Dennis spent a lot. I got to know Dennis quite well, just a fantastic, wonderful human being who I did a commentary with, which I was very nervous to do a commentary with Dennis, but because he's such a good actor, and he's very, very smart and very knowledgeable. And this movie meant a lot to him, which was kind of a big deal. And then Erwin Yablans, who is fucking Erwin Yablans.
Exactly.
Very nervous to talking to him too, but he was nothing but nice and thankful, and very, very wonderful for the interviews. So it was a lot of fun, putting that together, which does a great, did a great, scan of that film. It looks fantastic. Looks better than ever. And it's also one of those movies that a lot of people wanted, which was great.
Yeah.
The big one is Champagne and Bullets. Champagne and Bullets was also known as what more people know as Get Even, Road to Revenge, which never really had a release. John DeHart has made copies through the years of DVDs and stuff through his website, but it's actually never been officially released. And Champagne and Bullets has never been released because, he originally made Champagne and Bullets with his own money. I think it was like $400,000. And then, he cut the movie into Road to Revenge and then cut it again into Get Even and released both of those. So this is the first time it's been uncensored with a lot more violence and nudity in the film. So that's a big one, just because that movie is insane. It's an insane concept as far as like a vanity project, because John wrote, acted, directed, co-edited the film, produced the film, and it is something to be seen. It's a wild movie. Something that's not discounted, but it recently come out, was our Homegrown Horror box set, which I'm very, very happy about it. It was that was a long time in the making. Those films we spent quite a long time on, for one, getting the material and getting all those films together, because some of those movies were edited on tape, which the negatives were never cut. So when you do that, you kind of have to Frankenstein your project together of watching what was done like on DVD or VHS, and then editing and finding what takes they actually used from that reel that's not edited, which takes a very long time. And I was Winter Beast was a huge movie for me, just because it was something that I've loved for a long time, and I love Mark, the producer of it. Fatal Exam was another huge one for us, huge one for me, just because I've always really liked that movie. Again, a film that's never actually been officially released, just kind of more or less in the I believe St. Louis area, just in the video stores there. So it actually never, and it was made by the filmmakers. I don't think they actually had a distribution deal, and if they did, it was just for local video stores. So that's the first time that movie's really been seen, which I was very excited about. And of course, Beyond Dream Store is in that set too, which that movie has had a little bit of traction because it had, multiple VHS releases and also DVD through the years. But yeah, no, there's so much in our catalog that I love. But this is the cheapest that it'll be right now. And aside from the the titles from February and on, but yeah, no, I mean there's quite a bit. The other big one is the Fear, just because that was a movie that I really kind of championed for a long time, and I know that it's gets mixed reviews, but I've always really liked it. Kind of always looked more into the psychological aspect of the film rather than a horror film in a way, but I always really liked that movie quite a bit, and we were able to do a 50-minute documentary on the film, which was very exciting to do that with Greg and the cast and crew. We actually went back to where they shot it at Lake Arrowhead in California, and they did their interviews there. Greg did like a little tour at the Santa's Village where they did some of the filming. So that was a lot of fun. Surf 2 is a big fun project as well. That movie has 4 commentaries on it. 2 with Randall Badot, 1 with me, and then 1 with Zach Carlson. We covered the director's cut and also did the theatrical cut and the director's cut. And that's a movie that we found out there was a director's cut during the production of the special features, because it was actually a conversation I had with Randall. We were talking about it, and he was just a little like, yeah, this, okay. Not really like very enthused about doing it. Like he liked the movie and he wanted to do it, but there was this kind of like lack of enthusiasm. And then when we were talking, he mentioned that he would enjoy it more if he was able to release his cut of the movie. And I'm like, I have no idea about that. Tell me. And he actually had a VHS copy of the film, and he did say that a print was struck for it. And I said, well, let's find that. So we went back to the drawing board, went to trying to find this print of the movie. It's not a negative, because it was struck. There's this one print, and it was kind of like lost in all these other prints that were struck for Surf 2. So we actually found it, and we were able to scan it, clean it up a little bit, and put it on the disc, which Randall was very, very happy about. So he did the commentary with me. His interview is during just having the theatrical cut, so his enthusiasm isn't like super high at that point. But that doc is pretty long. I mean, we have so many people involved, and also like Eddie Deason did a commentary for us for the director's cut, which was great. So we were super happy about that. But all the new titles, especially Six String Samurai, just so much work into those discs, and so much participation from the filmmakers. We wouldn't have been able to do it without them. Six String would not be as cool if we didn't have Lance, the director, of helping and kind of, he even co-directed the special features for the 72-minute documentary that we made. He co-directed it with Elijah Drenner, who is one of my favorite people in the world because he edits some of these bigger pieces for me. But he did this whole thing of wanting to do the interviews, because he was like, I really want to be involved. And I said, okay, like, let's see how we can do this. So one of the more complicated shoots that we've ever done is having a Zoom call between Lance and the interview subject, while Lance is techie, so he has the camera set up on himself, but also hiring a videographer to go to this other person and videotape. So we have two cameras rolling and then a Zoom with both of them. So that's kind of like how it's set up. And all of this was edited into one piece. The best one was the day I was so nervous. Oh my God, I didn't even eat this day. We had a setup between the Red Elvises. So 3 of the Red Elvises were together. And then Xenia was in Sacramento. And then we had Lance. So we had 3 cameras rolling and a Zoom between the 3 of them with lag and whatnot of these 4 Russian guys that are crazy. But it came out perfect and they did a great job. And then the biggest part of that is, so basically kind of when we set this up as far as doing special features, we find out who is around. I try to get as many people as we possibly can because I like bigger pieces. Sometimes we're only able to get 1 or 2 interviews and that's it. Other times we have something like, Surf 2 or the Beastmaster, where we had like 15 people for the Beastmaster Chronicles. So Brian Tyler came up and I was like, I don't think we can get fucking Brian Tyler. He's fucking doing, Marvel scores. Mm-hmm. He's scoring Marvel. Like, no joke. He's like scoring like 3 Marvel movies. And I was like, we can try. And so we, we're having, the conversation. I'm like, all right, I'll try to reach out to Brian Tyler's people. We'll see what happens. And I get this email and it's from Brian Tyler's email address. And he was like, yes, I would love to do this. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, he's like, I'll take a break. Like, come to my studio and we'll shoot when I'm like on break. Like, giving everybody, like a chance to calm down, and we'll come in and do it in the studio. And I'm like, all right, man, let's do it. And so Brian Tyler did this amazing interview. And just him and Lance reconnected too, because they both come so far. Because that was Brian Tyler's first movie that he ever worked on. And then he went to go, score Fast 5 and, Marvel movies. So he's had this massive, massive career. So yeah, that was just, it's a lot of fun putting this stuff together just because, you do have this one thing of people reconnecting. And that's a cool thing always, is that being able to have people reconnect. Like Fatal Exam was a lot of fun because those guys are all still friends. And they all got together and they did their interviews like at one of the actors' house. They did their commentary all together. So there's like 5 or 6 people on that commentary. So that's always fun. It's just like, it's all about participation for the most part. Yeah.
Well, and, one of the things I love about Vinegar Syndrome, and I've said this time and time again, is that you take these obscure movies, and it doesn't really matter about the quality of the movie. You guys just roll out the red carpet for them, with great transfers, lots of extras. I mean, who in their right mind would have ever thought that we would get Tammy and the T-Rex on Blu-ray? Forget about 4K. Tammy and the T-Rex exists on 4K because of Vinegar Syndrome. If you can't love Vinegar Syndrome for that, you just can't love. So,
Tammy was a lot of fun because it was something that we knew about, having this gore cut of the film and just kind of being shelved, you know, and obviously recut and turned into more of a family-esque film. But yeah, that was a wild time, because that was when I was very first, like, you know, I was with VS for a while, but being brought in, that's when I was like full time, like being brought in and just being dropped in and saying, you know, you're special features producer, and I'm like, oh, okay.
By the way, we're
okay, cool, let's do this. And like, we all worked together on this stuff, but it was just like, you know, getting all this stuff together, and Tammy was, you know, like, what do we do? And I was like, oh, let's take it to Fantastic Fest, you know? And they, you know, were like, okay, cool. Like, if we can get in, that's great. And we were there, you know, I helped coordinate the year before with Sudden Fury. And so, you know, we were able to get it Fantastic Fest. Fantastic Fest did a great job of, you know, hosting the film. And it was just this huge thing. And then also we, you know, we had the pre-order of it. And then we were like, oh, 4K UHD, which is a really funny movie, to do 4K UHD, especially your first title that you do 4K UHD of. Mm-hmm. It was kind of like, I looked at it as kind of a joke, and not like a joke like hokey. It was just kind of like, this is really funny, and I love what we're doing here. Like, and seeing the reaction of the 4K UHD was just amazing, and watching people get excited for this, and it was just next level. To see that come to, you know, the 4K UHD. But yeah, no, and then we've done, you know, we did Rad afterwards, you know, Dial Code Santa Claus, Deadly Games. Mm-hmm. You know, of course, we have the Skinner Cop movies, Sex World. So yeah, we're very much into 4K UHD because, you know, just like when DVDs were starting to come out, some companies did it right, some companies just did it wrong. Right. And we really wanted to shine with the 4K UHD. And, you know, we do our best and we do it right. And it's amazing to see the reactions of these movies being on 4K UHD, because you know, in a world of clarity and perfection on a disc, you expect, you know, Grease, Rocky Horror Picture Show, you know, that stuff on 4K. We're doing fucking Scanner Cop too. But that's what we do. That's Vinegar Syndrome.
Well, that's another reason why I love you guys. I mean, you brought Rad to, not again, 4K. It's like Rad's making the jump from VHS to 4 freaking K. Who would have thought that? Yeah. I'm such a Rad fan. I've talked about it. I don't know how many videos. Bill Allen actually must have saw one of those videos, because he messaged me one day on Facebook and was like, hey man, FYI, Rad is coming to Blu-ray. And this was like a year before the movie came out. And I was just like, oh my God, this is awesome. And then of course, you know, you hear it's 4K. I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. So
yeah. And we had a lot of fun. I mean, I was just happy to do that, because that's a, you know, for years it's a very highly requested title from
and another
many
one
people.
And another one that I've heard over the years, I don't know how many times, music rights are the issue.
What?
The music rights. I'd heard over and over
Rad?
again. For Rad, the music rights were the issue with Rad.
No.
Yeah.
Not at all. Nothing that I know of. No. There's reasons I'm not going to get into. But no, that's not the reason why I was told that Rad was not out. So.
Do you have your own like wish list of movies that?
Oh yeah.
Okay. I'm not going to ask you anyone specifically. Are there any that you're just like, you know, this is my Moby Dick. You've been after it for a long time. You can't quite get it.
Yeah. No, I mean, to clarify, I wouldn't be able to do any of this without Vinegar Syndrome.
Right.
Like, doing this and having a wonderful company listen to my suggestions and ideas is a wonderful thing. And there's always movies that we, as individuals in the company, want, more than maybe the other people. And so the big thing was, like, everybody has those titles. Joe has titles, Ryan has titles, and I have some too. And, a big one for me was action films. So LA Wars, Martial Law 1 and 2, those were, big titles for me that I champion and kind of spearheaded. Spookies, which everybody kind of wanted to do Spookies, but Spookies was one that I really, kind of like how you mentioned that there was music rights issues. I always heard stories from online forums like Spookies, all the rights were a mess.
Right.
And that's kind of when I just, as a company, we were talking, and I was like, oh, what about Spookies? And I was told it was just because we were trying to find the owner. And I was like, are the rights a mess? And no, not. The owner owns the movie. We just are having trouble finding him. Well, okay, I can do that. And that's what Spookies ended up being, was just trying to find people.
It's so frustrating though, because I mean, Spookies in particular is a movie that I've loved since I was a kid, and that I've wanted to be on, forget Blu-ray, just on DVD. Just give us something other than the VHS. And you hear all these stories. Well, the rights are a mess. There's this issue. There's that issue. For a long time, there was the story that it's two unfinished movies edited together, which that was the story for years and years and years, and that's not true at all. And then you find out, well, just nobody's contacted the person that owns it. That's
it was just a lot of legwork. Honestly, it was a ton of legwork, and I was just like, I don't think Spookies is a good movie, but I love Spookies, and I want to see it out there. That was my thing. It was one of the very first tapes I ever had. So I was very excited to get that, and have Vinegar Syndrome, of course, back me up and just say, have at it. Go ahead and try, because they would love to have it too. But yeah, Splatter University, like I said, The Suckling, those were a couple titles that I really, wanted to bring to the table. The Fear was one that I spearheaded a lot, But again, like I said, if it wasn't for, everybody else at Vinegar Syndrome saying, yeah, let's go ahead and do this. But yeah, there's always films that we as individuals bring up, with amongst ourselves. Like, we'll get a text to be like, hey, what about this? What about that? And in a lot of times, our list is just huge.
Right.
It's our want list is massive. And, honestly, a lot of the time that we do kind of the choosing is, we go by, the recommendation thing on our website,
Right.
people recommending titles. If something is requested, 2,000 times, then that's something obviously we'll take priority of trying to grab first, because that's what people want. But I mean, it's most of the time when we get recommendations, we're like, we know we're already after that, or we would love to do that.
Right.
It's and plus we can only do so much, we still do 3 to 4 to 5 titles a month or something like that. I don't even know anymore. I just know my deadlines. It's so funny, because people they're like, I'll have like someone ask, oh, what did you release this month? I don't have a fucking clue. I have to look, just because there's just so much that's
that's great, because I remember doing a video just a few short years ago talking about all these movies that have yet to make the jump to DVD or Blu-ray, and I went back and looked at that video not long ago. Pretty much every single one of those releases are now on Blu-ray.
Yeah.
So there were these titles that I just thought would never see the light of day, and here they are. And I think it's great that we've made those kinds of leaps. But
No, no,
but
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, but the fact that you guys are releasing so much is proof that there's a lot of stuff out there that, like I said before, it has kind of fallen through the cracks. You guys are there to catch it.
Yeah. And then, we have wonderful companies, Arrow, Severin, that are just doing some stellar and wonderful work. Mondo Macabro as well. Just getting a lot of the European films out there. Just doing wonderful transfers and curating this. I love Arrow. I love Arrow. Their Arrow Academy, which I know now is Arrow Video and Arrow Academy is one. I've always looked at them as one. I never looked at them separately, but that was, I adore their catalog and the work that they do on their films. So, I get to kind of live in that world too, of hearing about, announcements and other movies. And then also, it's like, oh shit, they got it. That's awesome. That's perfect. And as you can see, there's a ton of Arrow titles from down up here to down here. I just, and it's just, it's great to see kind of the camaraderie and, the working, somewhat together and not together, but, trying to bring all these films back out of films that we love growing up. And even not watching growing up, discovering a few years ago. Because there's that too. There's a lot of those titles as well. But yeah, no, it's the want list is, you don't even want to see it. It's just too much.
I would like to see it actually. I might add a few titles to it myself.
There's quite a bit. Yeah.
Do you ever run into issues like trying to acquire rights where they've either not heard of Vinegar Syndrome, so they go for the Arrows, or they want to hook up with maybe an Arrow, like you said, or a Scream Factory or something like that? Or do you have issues where maybe you run into people don't want you to release their movie because you also release adult movies?
There isn't. I wouldn't say there's any people that are like, oh, there's a market for this. A lot of it's first come, first serve type things. And sometimes we know who's going after what, so we don't step on anybody's toes, because this isn't a war. Right. I think we talked about this offline. There's this thing about label wars.
Right.
It's no fucking war. We all love one another. But I mean, as far as maybe seeing if they go to our website, that could be a deterrent. But I've never run into that, just because they're happy that the movie's going to be back out.
Right.
So they get they just get excited that they might be able to earn some extra money. And see their livelihood that they worked 2 or 3 years on get back out there. So
cool. I'm going to show you some of my personal favorite Vinegar Syndrome titles, and tell me what's the first thing that comes to mind when you see each one of these. A fond memory, a barrier that you had to overcome to see its release, just whatever.
Okay. All right. I'm ready.
First up.
Those pajamas, man.
if only they came in big and tall sizes, I'd have bought 3 pairs.
Yeah, so don't panic. The Galindo films are a lot of fun. I was very excited because it was maybe about 2 years ago. There was I really wanted to get into the Mexican realm of things, because Mexico has so many wonderful genre films, and it's just an untapped untapped thing. And, getting the Galindo movies out there, especially Don't Panic leading up to that, was just a lot of fun. And, we got the rights, we had the material, and then I brought it up. I said, what if we did the pajamas? Where did the pajamas come from? And I remember seeing those pajamas on and off through the years, on television, other people, other actors. I think in Roseanne, DJ wears them at one point. But we really try to find, want to know where those pajamas come from. And we did. And, we recreated them for our fans. And I was just over the moon that we were able to do that. Because how cool is it to watch Don't Panic while wearing those pajamas?
I know.
That was kind of the goal that I wanted to, that's what I wanted to hear people do. So yeah, those pajamas are amazing. Especially a grown man wearing them.
Yes. Well, I mean, it's a grown man who wears them in the movie, for God's sake. So, I mean,
a few times.
The only thing that would have made that release better is if you had a nice remastered, either digital download or an actual CD of the song that Michael Bischoff sings. That I would have. Yeah, that'd been awesome.
Yeah, that tape doesn't exist anymore, as far as I know, and I did talk to John Michael Bischoff quite a bit, actually. He was sad that he couldn't do anything for the release, but he obviously was excited it was coming back out. I was very happy with those Galindo films.
Yeah, I actually ordered Cemetery of Terror, which that one had flown under my radar. I didn't realize that was also one of his films. So I picked that up during the Black Friday sale. But yeah, I'll catch myself walking around humming Don't Panic, or just burst out into song. Don't panic. I love that freaking song. Great stuff. All right, next title.
Oh yeah, man, I'm a huge fan of Island of Blood. I know we call it Whodunit, but that movie's called Island of Blood to me. So yeah, Island of Blood has been a favorite of mine, through my younger days. And it was a movie that I couldn't fucking make out what was going on half the time, because every transfer of that movie on VHS, I mean, it's only had the one transfer on VHS. It was just so dark and you couldn't see shit. And when we acquired that, I was so happy. And then doing the special features on that, learning the experience of the relationships with everybody, the relationship between Bill Nod, being such a wonderful person and very weird, I was told, but he was just such a nice guy. Taking these kids in and putting them up and, shooting this movie in a huge house, part of Bill Nod's house, editing the film in Bill Nod's garage. Just a really fun story. And, hearing the more clarity of that song that plays, I was very happy. Even though people find that song annoying, I find it amazing. And then also finding out through the special features, I said this last night in another stream, is that Jim Piper, who plays the tall, lanky guy in the movie, is actually the Giggle in Dr. Giggles.
That's right. Yep. Yeah. That's right. That guy did the Giggle for Dr. Giggles in Dr. Giggles. Yeah.
So, but yeah, just a really fun-loving crowd. But yeah, the first thing that comes to mind is, oh my God, I can finally see this movie. I can see what's going on. The killer is actually wearing a cloak and a mask, and it's just not this blurry figure that it's always been.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was surprised. I mean, that's it's an early '80s slasher flick, and it's it's got its flaws, but it's really well done.
It tries to be creative.
Exactly. Yeah,
and that's what I liked about it. It's not it is standard, but it does try to be creative in different ways. But that's Bill Nod just trying to be different. That's how he's always been.
And I think it does a pretty good job in, who's the killer and what's up with the killer. It gets a little obvious toward the end, but there for a while it does
Yeah,
a good.
no, but it is kind of like the whodunit is kind of cool because it is that whodunit genre of stuff, but in more of a slasher aspect. But yeah, no, I'm a big fan of that movie, and I'm glad that people actually dig it because it is a little different. It's a little slow, but yeah.
Why go with whodunit over Blood Island?
Island of Blood
or Island of Blood? I'm sorry.
I don't know. I wasn't part of that decision making.
Okay.
I do call certain titles different titles of what I remember and grew up on. Like I never saw that as whodunit in the video store. I always saw Island of Blood, But yeah, it's just, I don't know. I don't have an answer for you. I'm on the wrong person to ask.
Even though we talked about this one briefly before, I love it so freaking much.
Spookies. Yeah, Spookies. Farting Muckmen zombies is the first thing that pops up. But seeing that in HD, the special features that Michael and Glenn put together in their doc, Jason Impey doing his Vipco doc, that disc is stacked, and obviously that's never going to be topped.
No. Yeah. You guys did such fantastic work on that. And, Glenn and Michael did such fantastic work on those extras. If you're a fan of Spookies, I mean, it's an absolute just must own. Did you, I believe, because I'd asked Glenn about Eugenie Joseph, and I believe he said that they had reached out to her to be a part of it, but they'd already finished everything, and they heard back from her saying, "Yeah, I'll do something." Is that?
I was not aware of that. No.
Okay. I think that's. I know she had been reached out to, and maybe she declined at first, and then she came back and said, "Yeah, I'll do something." So I thought it would be.
There's a lot of troubled relationships in history with that movie. So yeah, I could see a lot of people probably saying no. And some people saying yes, but Glenn and Michael spearheaded that whole thing, and they did a wonderful job.
Yeah, they did, absolutely. Here's another one of my favorite slashers, late '80s slasher. It's kind of like one of those comfort slashers. Rush Week.
Oh yeah. No, I love Rush Week. The first thing that comes to mind in that is sitting in my room, younger, watching that for the first time, remembering very vividly, and I just thought it was great. And watching it as I get older, it's a very standard slasher, but it has it's a fun party movie is what it is. It's a good movie to put on with some friends and just relax and have some beers or whatever. It's just it's a lot of fun, and the actors in that film, and Bob Bravler went to be a stuntman, and we did an interview with Dean and Courtney on that disc. But yeah, it just has this Pamela Ludwig is in that movie, who's also in Pale Blood. She's just adorable, and it's just a really kind of fun college slasher film. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, very much so. Yeah, agree with everything you said. All right, last one here.
We couldn't get Brad Pitt for an interview.
Did you reach out to Brad Pitt for an interview?
Yeah. No, I did. It was actually an answer. It was declined. But cutting class. The other memory that comes up is being younger and looking at the back cover, and the killer is shown on the back of the cover.
Yes.
Donovan Leach is actually attacking.
Yeah, I remember that.
I was like, wait, is that the killer? And then we start the movie, and I was like, what's the killer? Like, what are we doing here?
They're not great about hiding him in the movie either as being the killer, because I think at one point you see him, he's hiding behind a water dispenser thing, and you can plainly see his face through the water cooler, So, but yeah, I love that movie. Fun, cheesy slasher flick.
I love that too, and my dad really likes that movie.
Yeah, well, your dad's got good taste.
Yeah, he thinks it was funny. Maybe about a year and a half ago. My dad's older. I'm 36, but my dad is 91. My mom went out of town, and my dad still lives at home, but he's a little obviously older, so we had got to take care of him. So I had to go over there for like 3 or 4 days. And he was like, hey, why don't you bring some of the movies that you guys, put out, and we can watch them. So, he doesn't go anywhere. So we sat in the back room and we watched, I don't know, like 15, 20 Vinegar Syndrome movies. And his 2 favorites were Sudden Fury, and which is a title that I recommend endlessly because it's so good. And Cutting Class, which I was really taken back by Cutting Class. But one of the funniest things in that is he watched The Suckling. And he turns to me and he says, what is wrong with you? And I was like, what are you talking about? And he's like, why are you doing stuff like this, Brad? And I was like, it's just a weird movie. He goes, this movie's disgusting. He said, did you take this to your boss? And I was like, we all want the movie to be released. It's not like something specific. Like he doesn't, like, my dad doesn't really fully understand what I do. So he thinks like this is my fault. And not that it's like a collective effort in order to do this. And it's like, all of us saying, yeah, let's do The Suckling. It's more or less like I released this movie myself, and my dad is just like totally like wants to disown me.
He's disgusted that you're his son.
He was so disgusted because I remember at one point, like, the aborted fetus, like killing and coming out and being all weird. And he just like looks over and he just looks at me and goes, oh, like that, just completely disgusted with me.
So funny. So funny. I do want to mention to everybody out there, I'm going to open up the stream to anybody who wants to jump on and ask Brad a question. If you're a patron of mine or a channel member of mine, that link is already posted on Patreon and on the community section of my YouTube channel. So go ahead, guys, jump on in. I'll give you all first dibs, and then I'll make the link open to everybody. Also, if you have just a question in the chat that you want to ask Brad, go ahead and post those now. I'll try my best to keep track of them, or please send
also,
them via...
Sorry, don't waste your time asking me, is this movie going to be released on Blu-ray? Don't ask me if something's coming to Blu-ray, because you're not going to get an answer. We keep all our titles secret. There's not going to be any scoops tonight, so save your questions about that. Ask me about movies that we've already released, and that sort of thing. I'm not going to disclose any information, so don't waste your time. Any movies that you do want to see out, I get it. I understand. Definitely tell me that you want to see it, but I'm not going to give you an answer if, so-and-so is ever going to make it to Blu-ray.
Exactly.
Sorry if that comes off as dickish. I didn't mean it to. It's just, I don't want people to waste their time.
Right. And you don't want to ruin any surprises. You don't want to,
Yeah. I mean, obviously people that know us, we try to keep everything as a surprise.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you want to jump on, those links are available. If you're a patron or a channel member, go over and go ahead and jump into the green room. Or if you want to send a question via the chat, please do so. And I'll try my best to keep track of it. Or please send it via a super chat.
Can we can you scan through? Oh man, there's so many comments already.
I know I'm trying my best to keep track of them. If I miss your question, I'll repost it. Or if
I was looking through everything here.
Or if there's a question that's not necessarily appropriate, I might overlook it. So,
here's the first. Wait, Brad Henderson, you're from Vinegar. Yes, I see that.
He is indeed. It was big news recently. Amazon buying MGM for $8 billion. Do you think this deal will impact physical media as a whole, or more as far as individual companies go? Considering that I know Vinegar Syndrome's released MGM titles, I know Scream Factory's released
everybody has their hands in it. I mean, MGM has a huge library.
Yeah.
It's we don't know yet. You know, we don't know when all that will kind of take over. We don't know what's going to happen to any future titles that we try to license. We don't know.
Okay.
So really no answer. I hope it doesn't impact much because MGM owns a lot of cool stuff. So I guess we'll see.
Why do you think Vinegar Syndrome took off the way it did? The company seemed to rise to prominence pretty quickly and has amassed a very loyal fan base.
I would answer that in the sense of me being a fan first, before I started working for Vinegar Syndrome, is that they were doing cool shit. And they still continue to do cool shit. But I really took notice to them because they were releasing movies that I really loved and that I wanted to see. And it's cool to watch the company grow and grow and grow and do cool shit like Rad and Beastmaster and stuff like that, and do some mainstream movies while keeping doing stuff that is virtually underseen, not available. And we give the same treatment to movies. And I think this is maybe your answer, is that we give the same treatment to Fatal Exam as we do to Beastmaster.
Right.
It's a stacked disc. There's, it's not like, oh, this movie's going to be more popular, so let's do more special features for it. It's like, we love this movie. What special features can we do? Right. I mean, if you look at it, there's not much difference between the Beastmaster extras and the Fatal Exam extras, or Surf 2 and, Beastmaster. They both have quite a bit. So we treat every movie with respect. We celebrate every movie. We're not here to make fun of them. We're not here to make fun of the filmmakers. We know what the movies are, but we're not here to tell you to laugh at it. We're not here to tell you to do anything other than let's celebrate the movie together.
Right. Yeah, that was one, like what I said earlier. You guys, whatever the movie is, regardless of the quality of the film, you roll out the red carpet for it and you just treat it like it's $1 million, even though it may be $5. So, that's one of the things I love about Vinegar Syndrome.
Well, I appreciate it.
Yeah. Let's see. We don't have anybody in the green room yet. Anybody want to jump on and ask Brad a question face to face, digitally? Face to face?
What is the green room?
That is when people want to join the stream. I can kind of vet them in the green room. I can see them join before I bring them on. Put it that way.
Gotcha.
So.
Maybe I can look through this and help out.
There are a couple of questions that have come in. Let me see here. Anthony Treza asks, will we ever see re-releases of older titles that will be upgraded to 4K UHD?
Possibly, yeah.
Possibly.
4K UHD is a great thing, and you know, we'll see. I mean, there's not a yes, but I mean, I guess I say we hope. Yeah, we would love to. It's tough too. You know, it's one of those things where the upgrade needs to be worth it because you already spent money on the old one. You know, we want to make sure that it can be top of the line because it's your money, your hard-earned money that you're spending.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure it's done right. We just don't want to, dump it. Anyone recommend Weapon or Murder Weapon Deadly Embrace? Have a case of FOMO. It's getting low. Yeah, Murder Weapon and Deadly Embrace is a wonderful double. Deadly Embrace is more of my favorites, but they're both very oddball movies, and you'll laugh and you'll have a good time for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I actually I did when I was doing my live stream the other night when the sale went live.
Yeah.
That was one that I picked up that double feature. I've seen Murder Weapon, but I hadn't seen Deadly Embrace.
Yeah, they're both completely different movies too.
Right.
Can you talk about the release of Jack Frost? Not really, because that was before my time. If you have a specific question, ask that. But other than that, that was before my time. I wasn't working at BS during that time.
If you do happen to do a re-release of Murder Weapon, I think I can speak for everyone in the chat. We need an Eric Freeman commentary.
Eric Freeman's a funny guy.
And I can help you with that. He's a friend.
He's definitely coming around on his films for sure. Can you elaborate the differences between the theatrical and director's cut of Surf 2? Yeah. So I saw the director's cut of Surf 2 for the first time this year. Just because no one ever knew it existed. No one aside from Randall and of course some of the filmmakers. It's people are saying vastly different, but they haven't even seen it yet, so I don't know where that came from. It's very different though, because it's a lot of the movie was some of the movie. Actually, sorry, let me back up. None of it was reshot. They shot nudity, and they shot some needless nude scenes and some very just weird beach sequences, and just put them in the movie to get more girls and boobs. Even though there's already boobs in the movie and nudity, they wanted more. The movie is actually re-edited. It starts differently. The original theatrical starts over black, white on black, I think. And then starts the director's cut actually starts with stock footage and starts like a beach movie from the 50s. So yeah, there's probably about 20 minutes, I would say, of new film footage that you will see. It doesn't extend the movie longer because all the nude stuff isn't there, because that's the stuff that they reshot. But yeah, both versions will be available. But yeah, they're if you sync them up side by side, it's all over the place. It's vastly different in that sense, but it's pretty much the same movie.
Joe Reese asks, will you branch out to TV shows that have never made it to Blu-ray? For example, the Werewolf TV series from the 80s.
Yeah, no TV shows at this moment. TV show elements are really tough because most of that stuff's edited on tape, and that would be a hell of a chore. Brad, how awesome was Cynthia Rothrock? Cynthia is one of the coolest women on the face of the planet. She is incredibly sweet, overly thankful, and her and I became pretty good friends. And she, as a matter of fact, she just texted me last week. But yeah, she's such a sweetheart. And she's a fucking badass. She will kick the shit out of people still to this day. It's not a joke. And I asked her that during the interviews, martial law. I said, because you're a woman, people think you can't fight as well as a man. And that's what she faced her entire life. But yeah, she said, she hurt people on set because in Hong Kong, they were used to hitting each other. So when she came over here, she was breaking bones.
I definitely wouldn't mess with her.
No. Did you reach out to Robert Patrick for Last Gasp? Yes, that was a decline. You're my age, 36. Yeah. When does Vinegar Syndrome release Ernest Scared Stupid? That's already out on Blu-ray, so not from us.
This is a nice, not necessarily a question, just a statement from my buddy Nico. He says, "The Killing Kind and Forgotten Giallo boxes. I get tears in my eyes thinking about what great releases those are. Thank you."
But I really appreciate it. I love that the Killing Kind actually got traction and people dig it. Also, the Forgotten Giallo is one of my favorite things, and I was just very, very happy that we were able to do some of this stuff, especially the European films. So I'm very, very thankful that we're able to do that. Can you talk about the release of Night Beast? Was it hard to procure the film elements, or hard to get people for the movie to interview? There was a couple new interviews. Mainly it was old interviews, like with J.J. Abrams. All that stuff is a little older. That was done for Don Dohler. But Night Beast was a little before my time, so I wasn't responsible for anything on that. What title has been the most fun to work on?
I was about to ask you that one.
There's a few. I mean, most recently, Scanner Cop 2, Surf 2, the Beastmaster, working with Don on that, and Paul. I after production, you talk about teary-eyed. I woke up one morning and I had this email written from Don Coscarelli, just to me, just to me, and wanted to thank me of how professional I was, even though I don't really consider myself professional because I joke around a lot. But he said, we knew that Vinegar Syndrome was going to take care of this because of the conversations we had, because it was unlike a lot of things that he's encountered as far as like re-releases and stuff through the years, is that he felt like it was in good hands because of how we approach everything with care and want people to be involved. I mean, Don was fully involved, because I tell him, like, we want you involved. And him and Paul, of course, have been best friends for quite some time. But yeah, I mean, the Beastmaster was great. The Fear was great. Any of those like long docs that are in there, a lot of those are incredibly fun to do, and my favorites, just because they're very invasive with the filmmaking aspect and the filmmakers. And it just shows more participation when we have more people, because obviously more people are participating. So you're able to establish these cool relationships. Because at the end of the day, yes, it's a business, but there is this big passion. I mentioned this before. I don't like to email people. I like to have phone conversations with them so they can hear me and the passion in my voice and what we want to do. Because first and foremost, I'm a fan. So I get to talk to these people that I really respect and look up to. I'm just not a suit in an office just trying to get an interview out of you.
Right.
So I always try to talk to people. And once I kind of do that, we establish a relationship. But someone like Greg Sims for The Fear, Greg and I, again, became really good friends, talk off and on quite a bit. And, he's just a really, really nice guy. And you meet a lot of friends doing this. Sometimes it's like a one and done thing. Other times you become kind of friends with people because you do talk to them quite a bit. I mean, I talked to, like, and the thing is like Dennis Christopher did a commentary and he did an interview. But leading up to that, I probably talked to Dennis like twice a week for like 3 months. Because he wanted everything to be perfect, the perfect time. He had some stuff he needed to get out of the way first. So I really got to know Dennis, and, even his life and like stuff like that. It was just, and it's weird because, you look up to these people for so long and then, you have their phone number and you text, and it's really surreal for me. But yeah. So
Yeah, I like to do that with people I have on the channel. Do like a little pre kind of thing like we did, just to kind of let people, like, okay, he's normal. He seems to be able to, string a competent sentence together. He's a fan. So this might be okay. What I've agreed to do, I may not instantly regret. So
yeah.
I like to do that. And I had Don Coscarelli on my channel not long ago. And the
Oh yeah,
morning,
you'll know he's just a fabulous guy.
yeah, and the morning after, he'd sent me an email thanking me for having for me allowing him on my channel. And I'm like, dude, you're Don Coscarelli.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like you can come on whenever.
And knowing that Don really didn't like Beastmaster, what happened? That was something that we kind of discovered, through this process, that he didn't like what happened. So he's known for this movie and loves this movie, or we love this movie, and it's this like movie that's been watched by millions and millions, to find out the guy that made it didn't really care for it. That was a big thing too. But he was happy with how we handled everything, and his story was told. Yeah. So that was really cool. What is your top 3 releases and favorite slip? Favorite releases: The Severed Arm, House of the Dead. House of the Dead's probably my favorite slip, because we used the German artwork for that. And probably coming up, Scanner Cop 2, because Scanner Cop 2 is one of the best movies ever made. Patrick Kilpatrick had to have... They couldn't shoot any wide shots with Patrick Kilpatrick when he's scanning, because they would have to put mattresses and pillows and blankets around him, because after he was done scanning in the movie, he would pass out. The only special effects and prosthetics that are used, I believe, on Patrick Kilpatrick when he's scanning is that only at the very end. He's able to pop his veins out of his head, and they didn't need special effects for that.
Wow.
So yeah, that's pretty.
That's pretty intense. Yeah,
it's pretty intense.
My buddy Dan Shine from the Flesh Wound Features YouTube channel wants to know: do you have a release you guys have pulled off that you previously thought would be impossible to acquire?
Spookies. Yeah, Spookies for sure. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I would say Spookies would be the biggest one. Fade to Black was probably like a little bit another one.
Well, let me ask you this. The death of physical media is something that's been prophesized for a number of years now, and it's something that's on the minds of most proponents of physical media. What do you think the future holds for physical media?
I think we're going to see less and less of the bigger companies. A lot of it's just going to go straight to streaming, and the boutique labels will stay alive. But I think we're going to see less and less, and we'll probably see a lot of made-on-demand discs. I hope, even though it doesn't really look like it, but I kind of hope the 4K UHD thing kicks off, and pushes physical media in a positive direction. But buy what you can, because who knows?
Exactly.
What are some of Brad's favorite slipcases? I don't know. I love all the Galindo ones because they look awesome and they're kind of all run together. As far as like one thing, obviously our Beastmaster case or 6-string Samurai case, those are amazing.
The one for Scanner Cop 1 and 2 looks really good too. The case, and then you've got each individual Blu-ray in its own slipcase. It just looks really
cool. Yeah, no, I love that design. Here's one. It's not really a question on a movie. It just wants to know if it's on my radar. The Haunted from '91. Yes, that is on my radar, but who knows, man.
Wonder This World 97 says, Brad, once you connect with a director of a movie, how often do they offer you something else from their catalog for release because they had a good experience with VS?
Yeah, no, that does happen for sure, because they see the care that we take. And so, yeah, that does open the door for opportunity. if they're just like, well, let's do this and then we'll see, then they get to see what we've done. So yeah, that has happened for sure.
Do you? I know you can't go into any kind of specifics involving future Vinegar Syndrome releases, but is there any way you can tell us in a cloak and dagger kind of way what to expect in the future from Vinegar Syndrome? Hype us up about the future without.
It's insane. It's insane because we're growing as a company, and we're having more opportunities, and yeah, we're just growing as a company. We have more, a couple more people out there, myself, Joe, and Ryan, and just we're constantly looking to expand as far as like our catalog. Entering the foreign realm is going to bring a lot of cool shit. So I'm happy we're doing that. What is your favorite cover?
Insane things. Somebody asked your favorite
cover Vinegar Syndrome has released. Is that like a slip? I mean, House of the Dead, I guess.
Dan wants to know. I think he wants to know is Over the Edge or Band of the Hand on your radar? Is that Band of the Hand or Back of the? Is that supposed to be Back of the Hand, Dan?
I think it was Band of the Hand. Milk Creek released that. It's a Sony movie.
Oh, okay.
That's already on Blu-ray. What was the other one?
What was the other one? Over the Edge.
I believe Arrow just did that. If you were getting a sub package, would you get the completionist or the whole horror exploitation only? As if that's to me, I will answer this honestly. And obviously I work for Vinegar Syndrome, so this comes across as biased. But our package is such a good deal. It's insane. And you don't have to, if you like slipcovers, you don't have to worry about it. As far as the completionist packages, if you're okay with getting pornography, we do release, like, we're not releasing, like these days, like Brazzers and Bang Busts and all this stuff. It's literally scenarios of people having sex. Pornography back in the 70s and 80s, there's actually a lot of detail and production value, scripts, ideas, stories, acting. Like, it's just not, hey, let's shoot this sex scene real quick. No, there's actually a lot of put into it. It's honestly like nowadays you have probably 5 minutes of story and 85 minutes of sex. Back then you have 75 minutes of story and 15 minutes of sex. So the movies are vastly like different as far as pornography. So yeah, I always encourage people to watch that because these are movies as well. They're actually films. And they need to be celebrated more. If you're not into pornography, totally understand. I get it. We have families, we have kids. We just can't have that stuff laying around. So totally understand. But yeah, the completionist package is awesome. But if you just want horror and exploitation, do that too. Whatever you want to do. But if you're okay with that pornography, then go for it. Absolutely.
David Noyes has an interesting question. How do you get into film restoration? Is there a career path?
Yeah, that would be more of a question for like Joe or Justin LaLiberty because they handle a lot of the film. But yes, there is a kind of more educational background of learning how to handle movies or learning how to handle film, learning the ins and outs of that, scanning. So, and then also the restoration process. Like most of the people that do the restorations have been doing it for a long, long time, but that would be more of a question for them, not so much for myself, because I don't know how to do any of that. I just know what is done, but I don't know how to do it myself.
All right, one last question, and then I'm going to close the Q&A. My buddy Nico says, Brad, I love your Angel trilogy. Just curious, did you have to go to different companies to secure the rights?
No, I believe it was all the same company.
Okay, cool. What have you got going on outside of Vinegar Syndrome?
What do you
You
mean?
you work in film also, right? You've produced
Yeah,
some
yeah. I
short,
mean,
you've written.
I write, scripts, and I'm trying to get that stuff off the ground. I have another project that I'm working on, that will eventually be out. As far as like more movies are concerned, I'm helping with that. But yeah, I mean, it's just and doing some stuff for other companies as well. I like helping. So yeah, I'm always doing something with movies. Always doing something.
So, I mean, it sounds like you're a busy man between Vinegar Syndrome and what you're doing on the side. You're keeping pretty busy.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
definitely
cool.
for sure. I was trying to see if there was any other. I'm really thinking about getting the halfway package before the sale ends. Could you sell me on it? Yeah, it's a really really good deal. Like the calculate the movies of what we say you'll get, and they're fairly good prices, really good prices. So yeah, absolutely. And if you look up what people say about the subs, it's honestly it's nothing but positive. So that's good too. Do you have a release you had pulled off the oh, that was a question. I guess we answered all of these down here.
I think we've pretty much covered all the questions.
Awesome.
So yeah, that's pretty cool. But I'm super excited to hear about what you guys have in the future. Looking forward to all the future Vinegar Syndrome releases. Like I said, I'm just a big fan, like pretty much everybody else, and yeah, to know that there's insane things coming down the pipe is
Yeah, I mean,
very exciting.
we like I said, we're growing as a company, and um, like I mean, as far as like some of this, we have the Cardona collection, that has recently come out, and I guess I could talk about that just for a minute. Is that we've done the Galindo films, and now we're getting into Rene Cardona Jr.'s films. And this new box has, Cyclone, has Bermuda Triangle, has Treasure of the Amazon. Um, Rene Cardona Jr. was just an amazing filmmaker. He was someone that made comedies to action films to horror films. He basically did everything. The other night, I compared him to Lucio Fulci, because Fulci, was doing comedies and westerns, and then got into horror later on. Cardona was kind of the same. Or Cardona Jr., because there's three Cardona members. There's Rene Cardona Sr., who made movies, and then the third, who recently passed away, who made movies. But yeah, that set is really great, and it's just diving deeper into Mexican cinema, and then of course with the TV. The TV box set, we're now, these TV movies that we're getting into, which, I understand that maybe TV is something that people relate to being edited. There's no, no nudity, no, a lot of blood. Yes, that is true. There isn't a lot of that because it's made for TV. But these movies are very, very good. And especially something like Are You in the House Alone? A very important movie because it obviously has to deal with, rape and being stalked and violence towards young women, which that was pretty heavy when that was on television back in the day. So that really, the films that we chose were, I mean, everything, like the Cardona set, everything is carefully curated and putting all this together. So yeah, diving into the Mexican realm, we have the TV realm, and then also with a lot of these European titles, as far as like I was saying, the Giallo films that we've done, the Gialli, the Forgotten Gialli, we love, and then we have some more stuff coming out, as well as we just did a soft announcement for the Nothing Underneath, which was really excited, and its sequel, Too Beautiful to Die, which we're very, very excited about. So yeah, it's just we're kind of taking those steps here and there of getting these movies out, and kind of that's the direction that we're going, while still releasing stuff from America, of course, because there is still just an endless amount of great films that need to be brought back to light, action films. And that's the other thing with the the VSA, having some of that direct-to-video stuff, and having stuff like LA Wars and Martial Law come out, and Action USA, and then Champagne and Bullets. There is this really cool aspect of these action films that are getting attention, because I know it's something that people really haven't, like, companies really haven't done, as far as putting like these 80s and 90s action movies out. So that was kind of a big step for Vinegar Syndrome. And then seeing the reaction from people, wanting more and liking this stuff is, very encouraging. So that and opens that door. So basically, if something is successful and we know people want more, that is a direction we can go. So that's, that's kind of where we're coming from, because you just can't release 100 movies that of a genre, or from a, I'm not going to say country, because that's, not the proper thing to say, but, you want to release, like, for example, there's not a lot of sex comedies that are released, because sex comedies don't really sell. That's a sad part of things. I really love sex comedies, but that's just something that doesn't really sell for labels. So that's something that we, have to carefully choose, and there is kind of a lot of those movies to choose from. But again, we can't release a bunch of sex comedies because they don't do well. So if you like what we do, purchase it, tell your friends, do all this stuff. And then there's just, we're able to do more, and then further go into, because if, like, for example, if the TV stuff does well, like these TV movies, we do more TV movies, and then we can do TV movies from other countries. And, if there's that want for that, but anyways, it's endless. That's, I guess, my point to wrap it up. It's just endless amounts of what we can do, and it's just, if what people want them and people buy them and support us, we will give you bigger and better things. So.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Dan, for the $5 super chat. He says, Brad, thank you for your time and your restoration for all these great titles. Matt, I've bugged Brad in his DMs on Twitter about Psycho Cop many times. I'm not going to bug him here.
Yeah, it's owned by Sony, so it's just wouldn't happen.
Yeah, unfortunately. But Brad, thank you so much for joining me tonight. It's been a great discussion, and I really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me, and thanks for everybody that stayed in the chat and spoke, and asked questions. Sorry if you asked a question we didn't get to it, but unless you ask me a question about a movie, if we're going to release it, I won't answer. But you can reach out to me on Twitter. My DMs are open. I'm always happy to make recommendations, to talk, whatnot. I'm very much an open book on there. So, and then if you have any recommendations, just tweet at me. That's fine. It's just something that we put in our, what do you call it? The atmosphere, shoot in atmosphere, and then we'll remember, this is highly requested. That's something that we could do. So anyways, yeah,
right on. All right. Well, thank you all for tuning in. I really appreciate it. It's been a really fun stream, and really informative and educational stream. So,
well, I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem.
And thanks for covering all our stuff. You do a great job of actually, watching this stuff and breaking it down, and, analyzing the stuff. Cause something that you do that is really neat, and other reviewers do this too. It's not saying other people aren't doing a good job. It's like, I see you with your little paper, taking notes, and when you watch special features on movies, sometimes you get just a better idea, and sometimes you can appreciate the movie more.
Right.
And that's always cool to see, because as what we do, sometimes we appreciate the movies more once we open up to the filmmakers and we understand more stories. I've went from thinking a movie's okay to really liking a movie. So, that can change, but, and also telling people what we do. I mean, that's a big help of you getting on there and explaining the special features of what we do, because there is a lot of work that goes into, and that is a selling point for people to know that they are going to get, a 60-minute documentary about the making of, or any interesting stuff. So, like, once people find out the Johnny DeHart's doing a commentary on Champagne and Bullets and how crazy this story is that he made, it will move more copies,
Yeah. There you go. Hey, just doing my part, to help
absolutely.
out. So, but thank you, Phantasm81, for the 100 peso super chat. Very kind of you, sir. He says, "Hello, Piz. I love Vinegar Syndrome, especially Sudden Fury." So we got a Sudden Fury fan out there.
Sudden
Thank you,
Fury is,
Phantasm.
I think, probably one of the best and tightest movies we've done.
I'll have to add that one to my list here. Let me put that one on my list.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Sudden Fury is a Canadian production. It was a movie that was actually never released on video in the U.S. It just had a small theatrical release, and it's just a very well crafted, extremely well edited, well shot cat and mouse on the hunt movie, and it's incredibly suspenseful.
Cool. I'm looking forward to it. Cool. All right. Again, thank you all for tuning in. Thank you, Brad. I appreciate it. And everybody watching at home, thank you all for the great questions and everything. And have a great rest of your Memorial Day. What little of it is left. The halfway to Black Friday sale is only
hour and a half
remaining. So get in those last minute purchases. And take care. Have a great one. And until next time, peace.
Thank you.